Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and again, thanks to the families who are here today and for having the bravery to testify and to persevere as we move forward. We lost 346 lives in 2 flights in 5 months, and that's why it's so fitting that you're here today to represent those lives, those families. You know, I have been on this subcommittee a long time. And, you know, back when I was first on the subcommittee, we had what we called the tombstone mentality at the FAA. Too often, we were chasing after an accident to figure out what steps should have been taken, what maintenance should have been required, what went wrong. And I tried for a number of years to say, you know, you've got this archaic mandate from the 30s that was moved over from the Civil Aeronautics Board to the FAA that you both promote and regulate the industry. That was when it was a nascent industry. It's a mature industry, I would say, and I think that there's a conflict. And I was told, no, there's no conflict. And then we were doing an FAA bill, and actually I offered an amendment to strip the promotional authority. I lost here in the committee. And then it was not in the Senate bill either. But then ValueJet went down. And suddenly it was, there's some problems here with oversight, maintenance, subcontracting, all these things. And I got a phone call, I was a pretty junior member, saying, you know, that amendment you offered? Yeah, I said the one that was rejected. Well, where would we put it in the bill? And I got about 90% of what I wanted in that bill to strip FAA of its promotional duties and focus them on what they're supposed to be doing, is keeping people safe. And it took a number of years, really, for that to, you know, there's like the agency, you know, it has memories, and there were people there. It took a while, but we've been doing pretty well. And then along comes ODA, and when it was first offered, I said, I don't understand how this is going to work, and what are the firewalls between the Boeing person who works for Boeing and the Boeing person who works supposedly in the public interest for the FAA. I voted against it when it first went forward, but then when we got around to reauthorization, it seemed like it was working pretty well. We knew we didn't have enough FAA inspectors to do proper oversight. We raised concerns about that during the reauthorization. But now we see that there's very, very significant questions being raised in this matter. The committee is involved in a very in-depth investigation in addition to other investigations in Justice Department and Inspector General and others are undertaking into how this all happened. You know, we will be hearing from Boeing in the future. When we finish going, we've received a trove of documents, and we're pouring through them. So that's a work in progress. But we're here today to talk about some concerns that are ongoing and hear from the families. There are a few other things in that bill that the FAA has stonewalled. Flight attendant rest. Fought for that for years. Mike Capuano did a great job, got it in the bill. We held it against the wishes of some of the airlines and those in the Senate, and we persevered. But now the FAA is slow walking that and saying, well, gee, we can't do that till 2020. I understand one of the airlines is pushing really, really hard to not allow flight attendants to get proper rest. Secondary barriers, we got that in. We know now, which I guess a lot of us hadn't thought about, that you hardly ever have a new type. I mean, here's a 50-year-old plane, and it's still, you know, the same type. And the industry tried to say, we will only have secondary barriers in new types of planes. You know, I fly a lot, and the flight attendant behind the food cart with their arms crossed is not much of an obstacle to getting into the flight deck. So again, we are pushing hard to make certain that the FAA goes forward. There are others that weren't properly addressed. Lithium batteries, we've already lost 2 freighters to lithium battery fires. Foreign repair stations, been raising that issue for a couple of decades now. They're not properly overseen by the FAA. Some problems with the State Department, other issues. They don't have drug testing, they don't have alcohol testing, they don't have background tests, checks. And then finally, of course, the stupid government shutdown and all the damage that caused at the FAA and the disruption it caused at the FAA. And we have legislation that would rectify that to draw on the Airport Improvement Fund, which has $9 billion in it, and not have more dumb shutdowns of the FAA. So there's still work to be done, and this committee will leave no stone unturned as we go forward to make things better and safer in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the ranking member of the full